Hey guys, I'm going to go over something here real quick because I've been getting some questions about this stuff and I want to answer this and make sure it's clear. So let me just explain this to you. There's a thing called a Doyle scale, okay? Doyle, D-O-Y-L-E. Now I'm just going to take one component of that scale, look it up, because it'll help you to figure out board feet in a log, but I want to go over this a little bit. So let's take this Doyle scale. If you have a 12-inch log, and what they do is let me see if you guys can see this. What they do is they want you to take inside the bark. Now the bark now, not the sapwood, the bark. So the measurement from bark to bark is 12 inches, okay? So we have a 12-inch log on the small end. That's another part that you need to know. The small end. That's why using the big end for anything, in my opinion, is a waste of time. You're not going along with the industry standards. All right. So anyway, on the small end, you measure from bark to bark on the inside of the bark. Okay, and we got 12 inches. So the Doyle scale says that if you have a 12-inch log and it's 10 foot long, hope you can see this writing. Last thing I need to do is have to buy markers. I need batteries. So anyway, if you have a 12-inch log, 10 foot long, according to the Doyle scale, you have 40 board feet of lumber. Okay? You got that? The Doyle scale says a 12-inch log will give you a 10 foot long, will give you 40 board feet of lumber. Now let me explain something to you. So I'm going to take my handy dandy calculator because while I'm talking I can't do math, so bear with me. So I'm looking at this, okay, I know that from a 12-inch log I can get an 8-inch cant. I've done it 1,000 times, I know it. Okay, so 8 times 8, right, times 10 foot is 120 inches. And then I divide that by 144, that gives me 53 board feet, okay? So let me just write that up here. I'm going to write it in the math that I came up with. So from this 12-inch log, I get an 8-inch cant. So 8 inches by 8 inches, right, times 120 inches, which is 10 feet converted into inches. So let me see what the actual number is there. So 8 times 8 times 120 is 7620. No, 7680, right? And you divide that by 144, and that, let me just do the math here, divided by 144 equals 53.33. 53.33, okay, board feet. Now, how comes when you do it with the math, you get 53, and when you do it with Doyle, you get 40? Because if I'm selling lots and lots of logs and I use this, you know, I'm gaining more money. If I use this, I'm losing money. If I'm selling wood at $8 a board foot, right, this is 13 board foot, 2, 8, 9, 10. That's $104. I want my $104. I don't want to be giving away stuff. Now, what did Doyle do? I don't know what he did because I didn't research anything, but I'm beginning to think two things. One, there's a half-inch saw kerf because it's an old scale, I think, from the time of circular sawmills. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is, and we only have an 1/8-inch saw kerf with the wood miser, with thin blade sawmills. So I think that in order to come up with 40, not only have they taken a half-inch saw kerf or 3/8, whatever it was, but they're also considering the sapwood. When I figure this 8 by 8 by 20, I'm not considering sapwood. But here's what happens with the sapwood. Okay, so here, can you see this? I hope you can see this. here we have this 12-inch log that out of this, let me try red. Out of this, I'm going to get an 8-inch cant, okay, an 8-inch cant. So this is an 8x8. Now you can see that if there's a 2-inch thing around here of sapwood, that I'm going to have some sapwood in the corners of my cant. But after the first board or so, depending upon how thick you make them, I'm into all heartwood here, okay, from here to there. Now, I'm not going to even bother worrying about that heartwood because I'm going to tell you why when it comes to selling a log. Look, everybody has risk in business. You know, if I go out and let's say I buy a tractor trailer or a dump truck. Let's say I buy a dump truck. And I say, okay, I'm going to haul coal every day, I'm going to make this much money, and that's what's going to happen. And then I get a president like Barack Obama who says, we don't want no more coal being used. Okay, I just went out of business, all right? Or maybe I'm only selling half as much coal. So what do I got to do? I got to up my price. So here's an easy way of calculating this stuff so that when we do figure something, that everybody's on the same page. So if we use a Doyle scale, which I think is outdated, I'm not going to use that anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it the way I showed you here. I'm going to measure from the bark to bark on the inside. I think that's fair. I'm going to figure out what size cant I need. You can figure it any way you want. I have a cant scale that I use. You can multiply it by 7, divide by 7. I don't care how you do it. Just get the size of the cant. Once you know the cant size, okay, 8x8, and then the length of the board in inches, you get that. This is cubic inches. You divide that by 144 to get your board foot. The 144 is divided into this for board feet. Gives you 53 board feet, right? So anyway, that's how I'm going to calculate this stuff. So here's the thing. When I was talking about risk a second ago, let me finish that thought. I'm selling a log, or let's say I sell a log at a given diameter, and whatever that diameter is, if I sell you a 12-inch log, and I know you can get an 8x8 cant out of there, and I take the 8x8 cant and I do the math and I say 53 board feet, you can't ask me, you cannot say to me, oh, well, I don't want any knots in it, I don't want any bugs in it, I don't want any nails in it. How in the world am I going to know that, guys? I can't know what's inside of that log until I start cutting it. But nonetheless, the risk is you bought it once I start cutting it. When I brought my red oak home for the house up there, nobody gave me any guarantees about the red oak wood, and I didn't expect any. So if I sell you white oak, and I'm talking to a bunch of people that I know that want to buy white oak from me, if I sell you white oak, you got to understand that there's a certain amount of risk. But I'm going to be using this scale, not the Doyle scale, but my way of calculating cants. And once I figure out the cant, that's how many board feet you're getting out of that. Whether that board feet is ant infested, not infested, or clear all heart wood, you're paying for the board feet that this formula gives me in the end. Okay? So, like I say, I don't know if you can, let me see if you can see that whole thing there. Yeah, you can. Just move it over a little. This is what you need to understand. If you're not a good sawyer and you end up with 100 board feet short on one of these logs, not my problem. If there's a bend in the log and you take it, not my problem. If you don't want a bend in the log, then you got to specify that. Because, you know, on a tree farm, they have the trees in such a way that as soon as they're a certain size, you know, they pull them in and then they start cutting them. Look at the videos on YouTube, you'll see how nice and straight a lot of those trees are. But they're also very small. So in order to want a bigger log, like a nice wide board from a white oak, you know, if you want a 12-inch board, you're looking at a 16-inch cant or better. Okay, so a 16-inch log, not a cant. To get a 12-inch cant, you need about a 16-inch log in diameter. But here's the thing: no matter what, there is risk involved in this, and if you can't handle the risk, then you shouldn't be doing this, all right? So try to understand this. And I'm not trying to be heartful or cruel or anything to anybody. I'm saying there's a standard that we go by, and this is what it is. If I take that same dump truck I was talking about, and I go to the coal yard and I say put 2 tons of coal on it, they weigh me, they put 2 tons on. If some of the coal is big, some of the coal is small, some of the coal is dirt, guess what they say? That's your problem. You got to deal with it. So in other words, I have to take the dirt that may be in the coal, the small fines that may be in the coal, the things that are in the coal that are not truly like pea coal or nut coal, and I got to eat that, okay? I got to do something with that, so you charge accordingly. So when it comes to figuring out this stuff, you have to charge accordingly. You have to make sure you're charging enough money when you sell your white oak lumber or any lumber you sell. You have to charge enough money so that, you know, if you cut 3 logs and 2 of them are good and 1 has ants in it, your time still has to be paid for, okay? You still need to be paid. So somehow in there you have to be able to include that in the price of doing your cutting. Now, I know that sometimes you're thinking, well, this goes against what I said before. I'm trying to bring us slowly into through the process of actual management for your, you know, the business you're trying to perform here. So I started off slow, and I'm going to get more particular as I go, and then you'll see what it takes to be successful in this. But anyway, I just wanted to show this. There should be 3 things you're learning from this. 1, there's a scale out there called the Doyle scale, okay, that tells you how many board feet you get from a given log. Then there's another way to calculate it, which is the cant size, multiplied everything out, and come up with board feet, okay? So who's right, Doyle or this? I go by this. I don't care what Doyle has to say, because I don't know how he arrived at the answer. If he used, you know, an old-fashioned way of looking at wood or something, that's fine. But I don't. I do it this way. So if you have a little bit of not heartwood in your log, then you have to figure out where you're going to sell that and what you're going to do with it. I know for a fact that you can sell white oak that's not perfect heartwood, okay, to any kind of a trailer outfit, and they'll put boards down made out of that white oak, because you can barely tell the difference between white oak in the center of the tree and the sapwood. It's very much the same color. But anyway, so the things you should learn again, let me get back to that. The Doyle scale, read about it and try and understand that. The fact that you're measuring from inside the bark to inside the bark to get your diameter. You're going to do it from the small end. That's 3 things you've learned so far. And then how to do and figure out board feet. Okay? There's not any board you cannot figure out. If you're figuring out a 2x4, 2 times 4 times, let's say it's 8 foot, that's 96 inches. You got to keep these all in inches. 2x4 by 96 gives you 5.3 board feet. Now I know that because I just know it. So these are things you have to understand. So anyway, guys, once you understand this, this is going to help you to price stuff. Okay? And it's important that you price stuff and succeed and not price stuff and fail. So knowing that there's going to be a little bit of sapwood at the top corners or at the corners of the cant should be understood. It should be dealt with the pricing structure that you make up when you sell the wood. And that's all you can do with that. Okay? Because we've got to come up with some way that's, you know, a good way of solving the problem of how many board feet are in something. Now, with this Doyle scale, I don't know if the guy was thinking about like bent logs or anything else. I don't know how they arrived at their 40 board feet for this particular size log. And I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's talking about, Doyle. I don't know the criteria for how he came up with his answers. All I know is the criteria for how I came up with my answer. And I like my answer better because it takes into account the cant that runs through the center of the tree. Okay? So when you buy a log, you need to be able to figure out the cant. It's not hard to do. And then you need to set up that log, especially when you're talking 20 footers. Okay? 20 foot's a long way to run and be off 1/4 of an inch. Think about it. If you're off 1/4 of an inch up here, okay, and that log is on some sort of an angle. By the time you get down there, you're off a couple of inches. So you need to be able to have this set up just right, so that when you cut down through a log that you come out where you want it to come out. That's the best I can tell you. So anyway guys, I wanted to go over this a little bit. There's also on this video a couple little things about, I went hunting today with Bullseye. I was so thankful to be able to get out. It was a nice day today. Not really cool, you know, it was nice. I think it was like 45 or 50, which is good for 45 I would say. Good for walking for an old geezer like me. The dog loved it, I loved it. We didn't get anything, but just being out there. Although I've never seen green leaves in my whole life during hunting season. Hard to believe. So guys, I hope that this helps you. If you have any questions at all, just write them in the comments. If you have comments about the Doyle scale and you know how this guy come up with this, hey, please write them in the comments. I'd be happy to know that. But anyway, that's how I figured out. And you know the funny thing about this is I've been figuring this out ever since I started using the sawmill that you guys have watched me. And I still get complaints that I'm not getting enough wood out of a tree. You can't get any more wood out of the tree unless you're talking about this little bit of sapwood that ends up here where this curvature is. Yes, you can get some wood out of there sometimes, but not normally the way I figure it out, because I'm maxing out the size of the cant, okay? I'm running it through the log, and if there's any bends or anything, you've watched me how I work with bent logs. It's very difficult to get anything out of this. If you have a taper in a log, you know, let's say your log is tapered, so you start off here and you end up with this big end down here. If you're cutting this 8-inch cant, you know, you're going to come through here. I know that's crooked, but you're coming through here and you end up with this little wide pieces of wood here. If this is what you're counting, well, I can't count that and stay inside my cant, okay? But nonetheless, you might be able to do something with this. It depends on the size of the log. The rounder the log is, the bigger diameter it is, the bigger this thing is going to be out here, both of these pieces. So you might be able to do something with it. If you're working with a 20-footer, you may very easily be able to pull half of that out of there and get 2x material out of this. I don't know. But anyway, the reason I'm saying 20-footers is because there's a fellow up in New York that wants to get some white oak. I was talking on the email to him. And I'm just saying, you know, I want you to understand this thing. So that this is how we sell wood. This is how we figure out how much board feet is in there. But as far as whether there's knots, whether there's imperfections, whether there's nails, whether there's bullets, no matter what's in there, that's not my responsibility, okay? That's your responsibility, and you need to be able to price that out in such a way that when you go to sell it, it takes care of whatever your loss would have been. And sometimes we do lose, okay? Not everything is perfect, just like I said about the coal. I know that the local coal guy that I buy coal from, nice guy, good businessman. I've talked to him, he's fair, but when he goes and gets coal for you, he uses a loader bucket to load the coal. Every single time he gets coal, he has his people put the bucket down on the ground and scoop from there. Well, what are you getting? You're getting whatever dirt fell through the coal. Okay, as you dig coal out of a bin, he has it in a bin, the dirt shakes down through and the fines end up at the bottom. So everybody that gets coal from this guy gets a share of the dirt. Now I've watched him. He doesn't for anybody go to the middle of the pile, maybe for himself, to take out clean coal. He always goes to the bottom. I didn't like it when I first saw him do it, but you know what? When I thought about it, I thought to myself, as long as he does that with everybody, that is actually fair. Because as the coal goes down, you get a little more dirt. Same with the log. You know, you buy a bunch of logs, you're hoping everything is good, you look at the log, hey, that's all you can do. You know, there's nothing else you can do. If I have a nice healthy looking tree and you know, the crown of the tree has a lot of leaves, it's reaching out for the sun, what can I tell you? As far as I know, the tree is healthy and it was in good shape. So I'm just saying, you know, there was a certain amount of risk in this. So anyway guys, there you go. That's the video for today. Have a good one. And if, like I say, any questions or comments, leave them in the thing in the bottom. Thanks guys. Hey YouTube, I just went over to eat lunch and I got a box in the mail today and I guess somebody decided they didn't want this box where they were. Are you happy, huh? Anyway guys, I got the valve. It's an exhaust valve for the Backhoe, Reliance Auto Parts. I forgot the name of the company. I think they're from Canada though. But anyway, I just stuck the valve in. Now naturally this is backwards in here, got to come up from the bottom, but it fits the valve guide nicely, and it's the right size head, and everything that I measured on it is good. So all I need now is the gasket set, and from what I understand this gasket set should have all the seals for the valves. So if it does, I'll do all the valve seals then, I figured, just to make sure. And got to get some valve grinding compound and lap that valve in, and then I'll be ready to put it back together. So hopefully I'll be doing that tomorrow. I'm still waiting on the gasket set. Like I say, it should be here tomorrow or Wednesday. But it's also supposed to rain or snow tomorrow and most likely snow on Wednesday. So not looking good weather-wise. And this guy wants to go hunting this afternoon, so I've got to take him. Hey guys, I took this piece of cherry and this piece of maple, I believe it is, out of the kiln. It's been a month and let's see, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's been a month and 5 days. The moisture content was 22 and 12. And we're going to go check this now and see just what happened with this wood. And I have to tell you that plain face, even though these boards were wet when I planed them and they were, you know, pretty high in moisture, are as smooth as can be. The drying process has done nothing to the smoothness of the board at this point. Okay, so in this piece of maple, we are from 22, we were down to 11% moisture content. It's been a month. You know, we've had bad weather, not greatest for drying in a solar kiln because we haven't had that much sun. So we're down to 11% on this one. This was 12% moisture content. We are down to 8%. So this piece of cherry came out pretty nice. And the test was, can we plane wood ahead of time while it's wet and store it? Will it change? Well guys, if you look at how nice the solar kiln dried this from 12 to 8, no splits in this wood, and I would have expected it to split because how small it is. No splits, smooth as a baby's bottom. Both of them are smooth as a baby's bottom. Okay, this one lost 50% of its moisture. This one, let's see, 8, that'd be 12. This lost 25% of its moisture, I believe it would be, when my math is right. And you can see, or maybe you can't see, but they are nice and smooth. Okay? So apparently you can plane, at least these hardwoods, without any problems later on as they go through the drying process. Sounds like a, you know, it might be an alternative way of doing things. Let me just check this end here. Wow, it's 6-7% on the edge. Check this. %, there, 9.8, 10% we'll say. 10% moisture content on the edges. Pretty amazing, but like I say, the fact of the matter is it's nice and smooth. You couldn't do much to that to make it any smoother. So that concludes that test. So this tells us that you can plane hardwoods like maple and cherry before you put them in the drying kiln, and they will still come out as smooth as they were when you put them in. That's what this shows me. Okay guys, so I got all the stuff cleaned up here. Still didn't put the siding in the kiln, I got to do that yet. but and then we need to move that crane. But we're ready for winter. All we need is this backhoe put together. Okay. This is an old logging road here. They haven't done any logging back in here for around 20 years or better, so there's not a whole lot of brush that's disintegrated over time. Heel. Come on, heel. Heel. Good boy. Good boy. This is turkey sign here. I don't know if you can see it, it's shaped like a V.